Let's see. It says please stand by. This hangout is on air live. So, I don't know if people can see me. I don't know if this is working, but I hope it is. We welcome you to our ThunderQuack podcast network Patreon exclusive Daredevil conversation. Someone throw me a comment in the YouTube comment section to say that you can see us. Can you see us? Can you hear us? We want to know. The screen looks black to me, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, me too.
Let's, well, it says it's live. Hey, Mike, are you there? Can you see us?
There's a delay.
Okay, well, maybe we can just start talking then.
Maybe we can turn the audio down so that we don't get distracted by it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I just did that too. Okay, well, we know it's going, so let's just go with it. Welcome, everybody. You'll have to forgive us because this is our first time doing it. Usually Mike's involved and he knows the drill, but we don't know what we're doing, so you guys get to enjoy this right along with us. I am your host for the evening, Kurtis Findlay, and I run the Pullbox podcast with Mike. It's our comic book graphic novel book club conversation. And also our other co-host for the evening is Paul. Introduce yourself, Paul.
I'm Paul Gann. I'm with Talking Time Lords podcast, and I just started that with Jason Hunt, and we just got finished recording our second episode.
Wonderful. And and you're new to the ThunderQuack podcast network, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Great. Well, it's good to have a Doctor Who.
2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have a Doctor Who podcast here. I think that kind of rounds out a section of the ThunderQuack network that hasn't really been covered yet. So, yeah, that's awesome. Why don't we talk a little bit about ourselves, and then we'll get into talking about Daredevil. Paul, why do you like Doctor Who so much, and is there any other area of kind of geek fandom that you like to be a part of?
Well, I've loved Doctor Who ever since I was about 7 or 8 years old, maybe 9. I started with the old school classic episodes when I was a kid, and just been a fan ever since. I relate to it on multiple levels, but I'm also a fan of Marvel, DC, Star Wars. I like Supernatural, a lot of different fandoms that I'm involved with enjoying.
Cool. Yeah, a little bit about myself is I have grown up on Marvel comics kind of my whole life, and I love reading comics, and I'm a big animation fan too. So I've written a book called Chuck Jones, The Dream That Never Was. I'm gonna add. Hold on a sec. This one right here, Chuck Jones, The Dream That Never Was by IDW. So
nice,
good stuff. Check it out if you can. That's my plug. So this is what it's all about. You got to plug as many things as you can here. So shall we talk about Daredevil?
Sure.
Daredevil. So this was for those of you who haven't seen it yet, you probably want to stop watching this YouTube hangout right now, because there are going to be a lot of spoilers here. We're not concerned about spoiling anything because we're going to assume that you've already watched it.
Yes.
So yeah, just turn it off right now. Otherwise, I don't know, you might find out that certain characters don't make it to the end of the series. Yeah. So what about tell me, what were your first impressions about Daredevil? Even before the series aired, what did you think was going to happen?
Well, when I found out who the cast was, I was pretty optimistic from the jump. Not because of anything negative to do with the previous original movie or whatever, because I like the extended version, the director's cut of the original movie. Not so much the theatrical cut, but the extended cut. I love it. but I was actually really looking forward to seeing what they could do with this particular cast, because everybody is grade A, spot on, just perfectly cast for this thing. I Charlie Cox is Daredevil. I mean, it's just it's
He did.
outstanding.
He did do an amazing job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the cast it quite surprised me for the caliber for for a TV show. I think that they hit all the right notes there. Some of the characters were changed in ways that we're not used to, but the actors really made that they fleshed it out and made it believable and made it something that I didn't mind a lot of the changes because of the people who were cast in those roles.
I thought probably the biggest surprise for me was D'Onofrio's Kingpin.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just used to seeing him. I used to watch Law and Order, I don't know, here and there, because my parents watched it, so I watched it as a kid. And I'm just used to him being kind of that goofball police officer. And so when he was cast there, I'm like, really? He's kind of more of a comedy guy. Like, he's not as serious, but he did a great job.
Well, I knew that he could do drama, and I knew that he could do creepy drama because I saw him. I don't even remember the name of the movie. He did a movie where he portrayed the author of the Conan novels.
Okay, yeah.
And you could slowly see him descending into this depression and everything, and he really pulled that off really well.
Awesome.
So I knew he could play the character. I just didn't know how he was going to play the character.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that was determined by the writing, because he was definitely not. He was way more sympathetic in this than he is in the comics. That's for sure.
Right.
And even in the old Daredevil movie.
Well,
yeah.
I think that they are playing the long game with him. I think that you will see him become a little bit more of that character as time progresses. Hopefully we'll get multiple seasons of this thing. I know season 2's already been greenlit, but
yeah.
I think they're probably playing the long game with him, the same way that they've played the long game with Matt in this first season.
Yeah. Oh man, it was definitely a long game, which is nice. I mean, I think I wrote this on Facebook when the show started. It's like, why can't we have 13 episodes of a Captain America TV show? Unfortunately, now we have Iron Man and Captain and Thor. They're all blockbuster movie characters. We're never going to see them on TV. They're not going to get any more than 2 hours, 2.5 hours at a time.
The likelihood of it's going to be very small. I mean, the best we could possibly get is something similar to what we got with Sam Jackson on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah,
with a 3-minute cameo or something, and that's going to be it at the very best. But
yeah.
I don't see it happening.
I know, and I'd much rather have lower budget Iron Man, but 13 hours worth of story rather than cool special effects, the high end caliber effects and stuff, and only 2.5 hours at a time every 3 years or something like that. It's too bad, but they made a good choice with Daredevil because he is not so reliant on special effects to tell his story. So they can still make it look really, really good, and boy, they made it look good. The direction and the art direction and the cinematography in that just was quite fascinating. It was really, really well done.
Well, they also did it in such a way so that you're looking at this, and it's very believable that it's part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's completely grounded, at least in the beginning, in reality. You believe that you're really in the real world, It doesn't feel like some type of a fantasy type setting or anything like that. You literally feel like you're in the real world, that everything is grounded in reality. And the biggest reference that you get to any of the movies is the incident in New York,
Yep, and I was actually quite happy about that. It's like we didn't need to see Nick Fury show up or making big references to the other characters. Yeah, they mentioned New York a few times, but that was it. And that was actually kind of nice. Appreciate that.
Well, they played up. They actually used it to their advantage too, because they played it up as to this is the reconstruction period after the events of Avengers 1, So you're actually, I guess you're looking at this being just a few months maybe after the first Avengers movie. So it's going to fall somewhere probably, I would say either before or during maybe, would you say maybe Winter Soldier, something like that?
Yeah, I could see that.
Somewhere
Yep.
around in that time frame.
Yep.
That makes sense to me anyway.
Yeah, they all they're not very specific on exactly how long things have like how much time has passed in between those movies. But yeah, somewhere around there. And I think if we see any characters show up in the coming up movies as a cameo or whatever, then we can get a better idea of where it falls. But it doesn't really matter because they don't really mention anything other than New York.
Well, the events that take place in this series are enough self-contained that they're not going to affect the movies anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I like the fact that it's like if this is the reconstruction period after what happened in New York, then Kingpin has kind of capitalized on that, taken advantage of the chaos, and has taken control and
Right.
kind of risen up because of that.
And I thought it was interesting in the way that they said that he was doing what he was doing because he supposedly wanted to save the city. He wanted to make the city better, but in doing so, he was destroying the city. You know.
Yeah. It was a nice contrast there, and he kind of was doing the same thing to himself. He thought he was kind of saving himself, and especially going into a relationship with Vanessa, and then that ended up kind of destroying him as well.
And he's almost putting all of his emotional well-being in her hands. You know, it's as if he's just saying, "Here's my soul, take my soul and protect my soul, and I will protect you physically." You know, this is kind of the vibe that you get off of that relationship.
Yeah, I was kind of when the first few episodes hit and they started introducing Kingpin, especially once they got into his relationship with Vanessa, I was like, this is not the Kingpin I know. Where's the kind of the toughest nails, doesn't take anything from anybody kind of guy? And like you get a little bit of that here and there, but he's they play him very soft and passive in a lot of ways. So and I was like, what are they doing with this guy? But then the more episodes that go on and the more I watch, I'm like, that's actually this is great. I actually really do like this portrayal of his character, and they make me want to care about him. And I felt the same way about Lex Luthor in Smallville as well, when they humanized his character.
Oh, that's my favorite incarnation of that character ever.
Yeah, me too. I think that's great. And I think, so what they did with Kingpin here, by bringing him down from his tower and placing him at our level and getting him involved in things that we get involved in, really makes us relate to him more. Sympathetic character, and we almost root for him, except for the fact that he's still doing really terrible things.
Well, it also does something else, at least it did for me, because you start out being able to connect with him on an emotional level. You actually see him when he does make that turn, especially on that very first time you see him make that turn. It makes him twice as frightening because you see that it's almost like he just snaps. And
you're talking about the scene with the car door? Oh man.
Yes. because you literally you're looking at him and you're thinking, what's he going to do? I mean, because the demeanor that he has almost looks like that he's going to just have a very bad, angry conversation with this guy, but he literally just snatches this guy out of the car and just pummels this guy into nothing.
Yeah. Which is, and that's what I was expecting for the whole thing. And he definitely does that a couple more times in the series, and especially when he faces off against Matt toward the end. But having the dichotomy of him being so ruthless and being such a sensitive guy at the same time was a really nice addition to his character.
but it also gave him that serial killer vibe too. You know.
Yeah, the Hannibal Lecter kind of feel, yeah, definitely. Well, let's talk about Daredevil a little bit rather than we've talked a lot about Fisk. How did you like the way Daredevil worked?
I actually, you talking about the character or the show itself?
The character, the way maybe the way his powers were portrayed, his origin story. I don't know, the way he
I was a little unsure at first exactly how I felt about the way they were portraying his powers, because I was literally expecting something along the same lines as what we saw in the original movie, where he literally was seeing sound waves in his head, you know, and he had to like tap on metal and things with his stick to be able to see certain things and whatnot. But I ended up liking this better because it wasn't as dependent on, you know, the blatant use of sound waves and things like that. He was literally feeling vibrations in the air and things like that that were allowing him to see images in his mind, instead of having to rely just on that use of, well, I have to hit something so I can see what's in the room, or, you know, and I thought the effect that they used with his sight ability was very fitting for the character too, because of the fact that he is the devil of Hell's Kitchen. You know, it seemed fitting to me that he sees everything as if it's on fire.
Yeah.
You know.
And they didn't play that up a whole lot. They did that at the beginning, but by the end they didn't really show that at all, which I think is nice, and it they trust the audience to be able to follow that no problem. I think it's kind of nice. He also oh man, I lost my train of thought. I was going to go back to back to the beginning. In his origin story, like you were saying about the Ben Affleck version, where he's got to tap metal and whatever. No, this one in the hospital bed, he's just hearing all of these sounds and all of these voices, and it's overwhelming, and it's pretty much driving him crazy.
And he literally had to teach himself how to block those things out.
Right. Yeah. So he didn't have that
water chamber.
Yeah. It was just he just had to control it, and then it's I don't know. Sorry, I got distracted. I got a text, so I lost my train of thought again. Mike is trying to tell me something. I don't know. Charlie Cox is. I've never seen him before, but he did such a good job playing a blind guy. Like, I totally believed that he couldn't see through that whole thing. Like, I thought he did a really, really good job. Just the way he carried himself and his blank stares and everything. He was great. I thought so good. What is he in? I should have checked this out. What has he been in the past?
He was in Boardwalk Empire. I know that.
Oh yeah.
And the character that he played in that is what actually gave me the confidence that he could play this character as well as he did. He played I guess you'd say the first in command under Nucky Thompson, the gangster in Boardwalk Empire.
Okay.
And he started out that character being a very likable, very charismatic type person. And then when he needed to, he could very quickly and coldly just turn into someone who could just literally just beat somebody down and take them out, you know, without even a second thought. And so I knew he could play both sides of that coin.
Cool. Yeah.
You know, I knew that he could pull that character off seamlessly. And that was actually the show that one of the creators was talking about that he had seen that made him want Charlie Cox for that role in Daredevil, because he said when he saw him on the screen in Boardwalk Empire, he said, that guy is Daredevil. He said at the time they didn't even have the rights for the show, he said they were still trying to find out if they were ever going to get the rights back, and he approached someone in the company and said, if we ever get the rights to Daredevil back, this is the guy we need to get. And they just kind of dismissed it. They were like, oh, we're not ever going to get the rights back, so there's no point in even talking about it, So they just kind of dismissed it. And then when they got the rights back and they started talking about making the show, he goes to the casting director and he's like, what about this guy, Charlie Cox? Have you checked out this guy? And they brought him in and they let him do a reading and everything, and they picked him almost immediately once they had seen him play the role.
Yeah, and a good thing too. Yep. And yeah, you made a good point. He plays both sides really well. Like, he also made a really good Matt Murdock, and I loved the rapport that he had with Foggy. I thought that was really, really great.
That to me was one of the most believable things about the show.
Yeah.
I believe that those guys were really friends. I believe that they had been friends for a while. And they acted, I guess the best way to say it, they acted like brothers.
Yeah.
The only thing that he ever hid from Foggy was the fact that he was Daredevil.
And that was one of the best episodes, is the one where Foggy finds out. Like, so many times in these superhero shows, like, I'm going to show you my powers, and it's like, whoa, I instantly believe, and I'm like, so excited. It's so the coolest thing. But no, Foggy was really angry. And that was so great to see that sort of reaction in one of these kind of shows.
That was probably one of the most emotional episodes in the series, I thought.
Yeah.
Of course, my wife will tell you, I'm a big crier or whatever, but I didn't get that emotional the first time I watched the series. I went back and watched the entire series a second time, and it was like watching the thing the second time gave me an opportunity to digest it in a way that I didn't digest it the first time. And so the situation there was because I was connecting to it in a more emotional level the second time around, instead of just saying, oh, this is great, I got to watch the next one. It hit me on a more emotional level the second time around. And that episode almost made me tear up. That was literally that emotional, because I've got friends that I'm that close to, and I have been in similar relations, or not similar relationship, but similar situations to that in the past, where it was really that intense, and it made me feel for those characters as if they were real people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good on the writers for paying attention to that kind of stuff. I think that's so many shows are so surface in that way, and Smallville falls into that category. I think not really hitting, or they kind of pull their punches a lot of the time. But and I think being on Netflix, I think also helped that, because they kind of have now a reputation of that higher caliber of writing and storytelling now with the shows that they produce. So I'm glad that they went there in both the sensitive, intense moments like that, and the brutality on the other end as well. And I was actually kind of surprised to hear people swearing in that show.
Well, I kind of expected some of that because of the fact that I knew that they could.
Oh, did we lose you? I think we lost Paul. He dropped out of the conversation. Hopefully we'll be able to get him back, but I guess I got to hold everything on my own now. So why don't we, if you have any questions or comments, anything that you want to say, please, I think it's on this side of me. There's a little feed that you can write your comments there. I'd love to hear from you, what you have to say, and bring you into the conversation so that we can have your comments as well. What did you think of Daredevil? How did you like the actors and all of that? Paul's just messaging me here on Facebook to see what happened. Oh, he's got to reboot his computer. That's what's going to happen. Well, what am I going to say now that I have to hold the fort all by myself? I guess I could talk about. I've been reading a lot of old Marvel comics from the '60s, and kind of I've been going on for a couple of years now. I've been reading them kind of from the Fantastic Four #1, and trying to read month by month all of the comics that Marvel has been publishing, and in there, each of the female sidekick characters has a each of the heroes has their own female sidekick character, like Jane Foster and Betty, whatever her name is from Hulk, and Pepper Potts and Karen Page is one of them, of course, in Daredevil, and they all play the exact same character, and it's all very very 60s sexist kind of behavior. It's any dialogue they have has to refer to how gorgeous looking the guy is, or how they wish the guy would pay attention, how much they I don't know. It's just all like that. Wasp is another one in the Tales to Astonish, but in the movies, of course, now that we're living in this day and age, they're all secretaries. Every single one of them, except for Wasp, they're all secretaries, and so now in the movies we have like Jane Foster is an astrophysicist and Pepper Potts is CEO of the company, and they even make a joke in Avengers 2 about how smart their girlfriends are. I think I wonder if that's a little reference to their '60s counterparts. So what's interesting here is that Karen Page is still a secretary in Daredevil, but she gets more of an active role. She is right in there in trying to solve cases and get information and like, getting herself into trouble. But she can hold her own, and I thought that was a really nice way to have her character. And those who've read the comics, especially getting into the Bendis era, know that Karen's quite different, and she gets involved in a whole bunch of other stuff. But this was a really nice portrayal of Karen Page. Paul, are you back? Are you here?
Sorry about that. My computer rebooted for some reason. I don't know what happened.
That's okay. That's okay. I was just talking about Karen Page a little bit and her role in Daredevil. I thought she was really good, and I was saying that in the '60s, like every female girlfriend in the '60s comics, she was a secretary, but she was well written, a good secretary, and because she was kind of right in there and it's kind of holding the whole team together for a lot of it. What did you think of Karen Page? Did you like her?
Yeah, of course, the actors came from True Blood.
Oh yeah,
I had seen her on that. I at one point had gotten into watching that a little bit, but I didn't see the last couple seasons. But I knew that how well she could act from that show, and I thought she brought a really nice emotional level to that character, especially with some of the things that she ended up having to do in the story. And the fact that you believed that she was really terrified about these people that were coming after her, and she didn't hold anything back on an emotional level,
Yeah.
And the chemistry between Karen and Foggy, I think, was really good.
Mm-hmm.
You believe that they're really friends. You believe that they really hang out and that they really care about each other. The conversations were the same kind of conversations that I would have with one of my friends. And it didn't feel like just a surface relationship type thing.
Yeah, and I think that kind of relationship comes out of those kind of tragic situations or the really intense moments. That's when you really find out what people are made of and form those bonds. And having her be the victim in the very first episode was a really good way to bring her into the story, because we're introduced to her in a very unique way.
Yes,
and she has a purpose for being there. Otherwise, like I guess they could just put out a call and hire a secretary, but to have her actually be their first case,
Right.
it was really nice, which means that she has a really emotional connection to the team as well.
And
rather than just a
it
hire.
felt organic the way that they did it. It didn't feel contrived or anything like that. It literally felt organic. It felt like that this really was a situation that somebody could find themselves in, and it just grow into something like this.
Mhm.
You know.
Definitely. Yeah, and I was actually kind of surprised that they didn't play up really any of the romances, because like historically Foggy and Karen and Matt have this love triangle,
Mm-hmm.
and they hint at it a little bit, but they don't go there at all, which surprised me. Maybe probably saving it for season 2, but then they didn't know that they were going to have a season 2 at the time. But I thought
Well,
that was a nice touch.
you know, like I said before, I think with some of this stuff they're playing the long game. You know,
Yep.
because I think that in a lot of cases you get a better story in the long run when you do that, because it gives people more of an opportunity to care about the characters,
Yep.
and you don't feel like that you're just shoehorning something in just so that you can have it in the story. You know.
Yeah, and I think also because there was such a heavy emphasis on the relationship between Wilson and Vanessa,
Yes.
you would have distracted from that really important part, crucial part of the story, if you had focused on the relationship between those other guys as well.
I get the vibe from that relationship that he is more obsessed with her than he is in love with her.
Hmm.
You know, that she is more of an obsession for him.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah,
And
definitely. Well, it's kind of. I
uh,
wonder if she's the first person who's really given him that kind of attention as well. And I couldn't decide at the end of the series if she was still together with him because she actually cared about him or because she was afraid of him. They kind of leave that open as well.
well, I almost felt like that because he had wooed her the way that he did, and like I said before, the long game, you know, because he had chipped away at her for so long that she had gotten to the point where she was okay with the things that he was doing, because if he was doing it, then it must be all right, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. How long did this? What sort of time passed from the first and last episode?
Uh, I couldn't really say. I know a lot of times they will play it up as if a seasonal arc is an entire year, but I didn't get that vibe off this.
No, I didn't either, and
You know,
especially because it was 13 episodes and they're all released at once. It's kind of like they don't they they don't follow that kind of thing. I think, but
I would personally say I think that at the very longest it was maybe 6 months, maybe 8 months at the very most. You know,
okay.
that's just my personal view on it, because I think that if you make it too short, all this stuff happening at one time is almost unbelievable. And if you make it much longer than that, then it loses some of the intensity. It loses some of the, uh, uh, how do you put it, some of the urgency that they would intend for the story to have. So I would say somewhere between 6 and 9 months, maybe, in my opinion.
Yeah, and probably the time would pass during the first few months, because the last few episodes, like Matt's wearing the same wounds on his face
Right.
through multiple episodes, which mean that they're
Right.
happening back to back.
Right.
I don't know.
But I would say maybe 6 months, maybe. That's
Okay.
just my viewpoint.
Yeah. You want to talk about Night Nurse a little bit? I was heavily surprised that she was in the show. I guess I kind of stayed away from articles and reading about the show beforehand, so I knew that Rosario Dawson was cast in the show, but I didn't know what her role was going to be.
Well, you know, anything she plays, she's going to do a good job at.
Yes, so. Yeah, she's great, definitely, and I'm happy that that she got the role that she did, because it's kind of like the only person that Matt could talk to at the first part, so she had a nice emotional connection. we keep saying emotional, and that's kind of that theme was going on throughout the entire
Well, it was
series.
a very dramatic show. It wasn't
Yeah.
just an action series. And it didn't feel like a procedural type show either. It felt like these are people that you can actually care about. These are events that could possibly happen in someone's real life. That's kind of how it came off.
Yeah, and events happen in real life. Yeah, superheroes crashing through your window, and you have to stitch them up in the middle of the night. That happens to me all the time.
Well, technically, he wasn't a superhero. Technically, he has no powers. He's just a vigilante at this point, you know.
Yeah.
Well, he has powers, but nobody understands the powers. It's not a surface power.
Yeah.
So,
right. I think that I hear that Night Nurse is going to be kind of the main thread throughout all of these Netflix shows that are coming out.
That makes sense.
Totally. And I was talking about this with Mike the other day, and he is saying that, yeah, she, in the comics especially, she's kind of the person that all of these street level heroes go to when they need to be stitched up, because they don't have an Avengers tower or the technology to do all that kind of fancy stuff and heal them instantly and that kind of thing. So, like, yeah, for Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, who are coming up, and I think Iron Fist is the other one, right?
And I don't know if you noticed it or not. They actually had a little bit of a Easter egg in there where you got to see part of the symbol for Iron Fist on some of those little pieces of paper.
Oh yeah, totally. I didn't even realize that.
It was missing the wings, but it had the rest of the symbol was there.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it totally was the snake part of it, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. That's cool. I didn't notice.
I noticed that almost immediately. The first time I was watching it, I was like, "Wait a minute!" I had to rewind that. I was like, "Look at that! I know what that is," you know. And so I even pulled up Google images and let my wife see the symbol. I was like, "See, here it is! Here it is!" I was showing her my phone, and she's like, I just want to watch the show. Why are you bothering me? You know, I was like, sorry, I'm being a nerd, but you know, I thought it was really cool because I knew that series was coming up, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I was keeping an eye out for signs of Jessica Jones because she's a reporter as well, at least in the Bendis series that I'm familiar with, Alias. She was a reporter. So I kept looking for signs of her in any of the newspaper scenes, but I didn't see anything.
Do you know where she's supposed to work?
Well, in the comics, she works for the Bugle, right? And so does Urich, though. But at the time that they were making this show, they didn't have rights to the Bugle. Right. That was still Sony. So they were I can't remember what the newspaper was called in the series, but they weren't. I would assume they worked together. But we'll see.
I almost wonder, of course, like we said, this is going to be a spoiler-filled thing, so I almost wonder if, because of the fact that Urich is no longer going to be in the show, that maybe she might take his place. I wonder if it was set up that way intentionally for the story.
Yeah, maybe. I guess time will tell. Well, I was...
Especially since it's supposed to be the next one to come out.
Right, exactly. And I wonder if they're too far in production to make where Jessica works the Bugle. Now that they are partners with Sony on that, it would be nice to see the Bugle in there.
It'd be nice to see J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, actually, he could totally be in that show.
At least in a cameo or something, you know.
Right. Yeah, well, we were talking about Urich. You want to talk about him for a little bit?
Oh, I loved what they did with that character.
Yeah, and yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm thinking.
I had a little bit of the same reaction that I did with the Kingpin. It's like they're playing him a little soft. He's kind of they put Urich at his retirement age, which I thought was interesting because in the comics he's a young hotshot, at least in the 70s during the Frank Miller years. He's a young hotshot and kind of goes for broke a lot of the time, and you don't get that opinion. Like you definitely feel like he's done that in the past.
Oh yeah,
he's past that point, and now he's kind of he's just at the end of his career. which he became a mentor to Karen, which was really nice because again, it gives Karen more of a purpose and more of an active role in the show. But I would have liked to see a little bit more of him in his prime before they axed him. I don't know.
Well, he at least in the past, he's been one of my favored characters. But I can see why they did things the way that they did them. I thought that it at least in my opinion, it kind of gives you the feeling that all bets are off when you kill off a well-known character like that. It gives you the feeling that anything could happen, that nobody's safe.
Definitely. I knew somebody was going to die at the end of the series, just how dramatic it was. I don't think they could have got around that, and he was the most likely candidate.
But I think that it also was useful in telling the story. I don't want them just to kill somebody off just to be killing somebody off. I want it to actually make sense in the story. I want it to be something that propels the story forward, and not just something that they say, okay, we can pull at people's heartstrings doing this. I like storytelling that is organic, and I like for the things in the story to feel like that they're supposed to be that way naturally.
Yeah, well, and it really spoke to the desperation of the Kingpin at that moment. Like he was in a tough spot, so he had to kind of do what was necessary, and he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. And the same with offing Leland Owsley at the end there as well. It was good to see Kingpin be Kingpin like that. I put the call out for some questions, and so the Cosmic Shock has a few questions there on the side. He mentions, he or she, sorry, I don't know the real name there. It mentions Daredevil also had some of the best fight choreography, especially that fight in episode 2, and that's the one in the hallway when he goes to rescue the little kid.
Yes. That's intense. I don't.
Yeah. Well, to have one long tracking shot like that was just incredible.
Well, I heard somebody say that they had hidden edits in there. I don't know if that's true or not. It looked to me like there were no edits in there.
Yeah, it really did. And the nice thing about that is there, especially in the big blockbuster movies, there's such a the way they film fight scenes these days is so, it's like shaky cam, fast cutting, you can't really tell what's going on. But this one, it was, for all of the fight scenes, there were very minimal cuts. The camera was very still. They wanted you to see everything that was going on. And I think that's because Daredevil relies so much on his environment that he's not just throwing punches, he's actually being aware of everything that's around him. So they want us to be aware of everything that's around him as well.
And also, in the same interview that I heard them talking about how they cast the characters for the show, I heard them talking about that particular shot, and he said that they actually shot that scene from beginning to end without turning the camera off or anything. They shot it all the way through at least 8 times.
Oh man.
And so Charlie had to go through all of the steps that he was supposed to go through, and I'm pretty sure that they had stunt doubles cutting into that as well from the different rooms or whatever. But everything that was done in that shot was done completely from front to end 8 times, so that they would make sure that they had what they needed to be able to get that shot for the screen. So
yeah,
that took some determination.
And it paid off. It looked amazing. It was so good. Wow, 8 times. I can't imagine how tired you'd be after that.
I actually heard that interview on Kevin Smith's podcast, Fat Man on Batman.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of Batman, why don't we talk about your theory that you were telling me yesterday a little bit about Daredevil and Batman?
It's just my opinion. I've always kind of gotten the vibe off of Daredevil, that he's sort of like Marvel's answer to Batman, to tell DC, okay, if we were going to make Batman, this is the way we would make Batman. We wouldn't make him a millionaire, or we wouldn't give him all these gadgets and stuff. We would make him, you know, more grounded, more street level. We would, make him blind. We would give him sonic abilities, more like a bat. The character of Daredevil, to me, is what you would think a human bat would be, as far as his abilities and things like that go. And so I've always kind of seen that as Marvel's answer to DC, to say, we think we could have done Batman better, so this is the way we would have done Batman if we were going to make Batman.
Yep. I can totally see that. And even I've been reading a lot of the early Daredevil issues, and you can see that come off in just kind of the tone at the time. Yeah, especially since Batman was kind of turning more toward the Adam West days when Daredevil came out. So the people who didn't really want the fun, campy Batman anymore, all of a sudden Daredevil's there to pick up the slack. Yeah. The Cosmic Shock also asks, what were your overall thoughts on the Fisk episode? And I think that's a reference to the origin story, one where he's a kid.
That sounds right.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that story?
To me, it made the character feel even creepier than it did to begin with, actually, because seeing him as that vulnerable little kid, and seeing where it's almost like you could see behind his eyes, where you could almost feel something snap when his dad's screaming at him, keep kicking him, keep kicking him, keep kicking him. And it's almost like you see this something snap behind his eyes, where he goes from not wanting to do this to just turning into this blank machine that's just doing this because it has to be done, and you kind of still see that transition then when he gets older, where he goes from being this more I'm going to wear my heart on my sleeve, type thing with Vanessa, to where he can literally just turn on a dime and almost become a killing machine. And he goes completely cold, completely dead, no emotion in his eyes whatsoever. He's just killing,
Yeah.
And I thought that the way that they portrayed that was actually kind of terrifying, to be honest with you.
Well, and it really showed how loyal of a person he is. Like, he's loyal to the extreme, and to his mom, and that's where he gets his sensitivity from. So, because she's a loving, caring person, and then he gets his brutality from his dad. So they both really heavily influenced his character of what we see of him in the present day. And then that's why I think he attaches to Vanessa so harsh as well, because he
well, it's that whole mother complex.
Definitely the mother, the Norman Bates kind of feeling, and he's going to be loyal to her to the bitter end as well, which we saw once he found out who it was that was poisoning.
If I'm not mistaken, this is episode 8, Shadows in the Glass. Does that sound right?
Sure. I'll go with that.
I think that's right. But yeah, something else too that I noticed was, as long as his dad wasn't hurting his mother, it was almost like he felt like, I have to make my dad proud of me. I have to do things that make my dad see me as being something that he would find worthy. And then as soon as his dad turned on his mother, it was like, oh no, nobody touches my mother ever.
Right.
Nobody touches my mother, and nobody touches any woman in the world that I have feelings for at all. It's immediately, this is where I draw the line. I will murder anybody that even attempts to do this.
Yep, and he did that twice or 3 times in the show, to his own dad, and to the Owl, and to Ulrich. So all three of those people are attached to the women that he loves. So that was quite interesting. And it was a good backstory too. And it's the same thing again with the Lex Luthor story in Smallville, putting Lex's dad in there, showing how he influenced it. It was the same thing. Lex really wanted to make his dad proud throughout the entire series,
which was almost an impossibility,
for sure.
And
it backfired. It turned him into the guy he was, and the same thing happened to Fisk. So, that was
in the thing that I thought was interesting in both of those situations, with Lex Luthor in Smallville and with Wilson Fisk in Daredevil, is that both of them tried so hard not to become the person that they perceived their father to be, that they actually ended up being that person and even worse.
Yeah. It's an interesting parallel between the two shows there. That's good.
Well, it's the whole Darth Vader thing, I'm going to try to prevent this from happening, and in trying to prevent this from happening, I'm actually going to create the problem where it does happen.
Yep.
Everything goes back to Star Wars. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I think probably everyone who's listening to this is fine with that. Isn't that right, Mike? Okay, so Joe Parr pipes in and he says, do you feel like they will expand on Stick and the Hand in season 2? I hear the Elektra is confirmed more or less. Confirmed. So
they've already referred to Elektra in season 1. They just haven't shown her.
Did they? When did they refer to her?
Because when Foggy was talking to Matt in the flashback for college, he said, "Whatever happened between you and that Greek girl?"
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so they were referring to Elektra without actually referring to Elektra.
Yeah. So I wonder if they'll play up in the Ultimate Universe. Daredevil and Elektra do have a past because they go to college together, and that would be interesting to see. That was a great story. I like that a lot. Let's talk about Stick for a second. Stick, I loved Stick.
He was amazing.
Yeah, what a great mentor. Like you never see mentors like that ever. So it was so good to see someone who's just kind of crass, and while he does care about him, he's not afraid to just like, you're a moron and I'm never helping you again, and just leave it, that kind of thing.
He doesn't want to allow himself to care about Matt either, though, because as soon as Matt gave him something that had emotional significance for him,
he was out of there.
He said, I'm out. He destroys it. He says, I'm leaving. I'm not going to be your dad, basically, is what he tells him. And that to me put a whole nother layer on the onion for that character. And they've really left that open-ended for him to be able to come back. They really didn't tell you where they were going with that story arc. They just alluded to what could come next. I thought that was pretty good, And you almost get the how do you put? You almost get the inkling that he was actually tasked with possibly taking out an Inhuman or something in that episode. Because he told him, he said, I'm not going to let you kill a kid. I'm not going to let you take out a kid. And he said, that's not a kid, He was referring to him as if he was some type of monster, what did they call him? Black Sky, I think is what they called him.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that's a reference to something.
It almost seemed like that, the hint there to me was that they were kind of alluding to the whole Inhuman thing that they've got going on in the rest of the Marvel stuff at this point.
I think that they'll expand on Stick and the Hand in season 2, especially since Stick is his mentor. He's bound to pop up again. But if they've confirmed Elektra, then definitely that's the way they're going to go. Do you think? I think Fisk is probably going to come back for the next season. Although I'd love to see him not be in the next season and focus on maybe another one.
if they waited and brought him back, say for season 3 or something, it to me it would almost be more um, how do you put it, more powerful, more intense for the storytelling.
Yeah, like he was working from jail for the whole year or however long that season is,
Right.
underground, and then
And
he
they
comes
could even
back.
show they could even show little tiny cameos of him in his cell or whatever, but not actually show him interacting with what's going on in the streets and stuff.
Yeah, but I think he was too much of a great character and too much of a draw that they would drop him for the second season. I'm sure that he'll be back for
Well,
that one.
one of the reasons I think that that would be a good idea to do that is because it's the same mentality that they had with the Lex Luthor in Superman Returns, where they said, okay, this is Lex after he's been in prison for, I think they said 5 years or something like that, and he's come out of prison a different
Yeah,
man.
reformed. Yeah.
You know, no, he said he's come out of prison a different man than he was when he went in. He's now colder. He's more manipulative.
Oh
He's
yeah.
more,
Okay.
he's more. Uh, he's less emotional. He doesn't smile anymore. He's just cold and deadly. You know, and that would be an interesting way, I think, to show the transition for Fisk to become more and more and more of this cold, uncaring, dead-eyed kind of character that we see him as in the comics.
Yeah.
Uh,
They also could they could have some Fisk cameos in Jessica Jones and show that whole process or behind that jail time during that series, and then have him come back full steam for Daredevil 2.
Well, not only that, they could also have him carry over to make some small appearances and stuff in some of the Spider-Man stuff.
Definitely, because he's got a big history with Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, I think that, in my personal opinion, they could do a whole lot more with Spider-Man in this type of setting than they could in a movie setting. I know they'll never do that because they want the big motion picture, huge thing. But they could do, in my opinion, something similar to what they're apparently going to do with the Supergirl TV show, and have that epic looking, effects and things like that, and be able to tell the same type of long game story that they have with Daredevil and Spider-Man. I think that would be a really cool way to pull that off, and not actually rely on a movie to do that, because you can do so much more with the character doing it the way they've done Daredevil.
Definitely. Yeah, but it's the money talks, and Daredevil had its chance and it failed. And for some reason, Spider-Man keeps failing, but they keep giving it chances as well.
The first 2 original Spider-Man movies were outstanding.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah,
they dropped the ball on number 3, and they've gone, kind of flopping around ever since. So
yeah.
I don't hate the other movies. I just don't think they're as good as they could have been.
Yeah, well, and going back to those first Spider-Man movies, they also kind of they're dated as well, because they come from that early superhero era where the campiness was kind of more relevant, because that's what people expected out of those movies, especially with Sam Raimi as the director. Going back, it is a little hard watching some of those ones. I still love Doc Ock, their portrayal of Doc Ock. But we are digressing. Maybe we should get back
Sorry.
to that's okay.
Rabbit trails.
Yep, that's okay. Let's see. Do we have any more questions up there? What else do you want to see in season 2? Any other characters you want to pop up?
See characters like Bullseye come in. Maybe Fisk brings in Bullseye from prison.
Yeah.
And sends him after Daredevil. Something like that. I think that could be interesting. I think it could be interesting to see how they would recreate that character for this show, as opposed to the way that he was done in some of the incarnations in the past, to keep him relevant, but still paying homage to the comics at the same time.
Yeah, I think that another character I'd like to see, and I don't know how likely this would be, is Echo. Did you ever read the Echo story from I don't know, early 2000s. It was Bendis.
I've not seen it. No.
Yeah, a really cool character. She's deaf, so you have kind of that contrast. She's like a hired assassin or something as well. I
Really?
haven't read it in a long time, but it was a good story when I read it, and she seems like
I'll
a
have
neat
to try
character.
to find that. I'll have to try to see if I can find that and check that out.
Yeah, it was a good one. I haven't read a whole lot of Daredevil actually. I've only kind of read the key storylines, the Frank Miller stuff, and haven't followed him in a long time. But this has piqued my interest into learning more about Daredevil. That's for sure.
Let me ask you this, just get your opinion on this. It's still related to the character and to the show, but just not directly. What is your favorite Daredevil costume?
I'm gonna have to go with the classic red, although I really like the look that Tim Sale did in the Daredevil Yellow miniseries, which played on his original yellow costume. That one was really nice too, but I didn't care at all. He switched to this kind of armor dark blue one in the 90s that I didn't care about at all. And he really hasn't had a whole lot of other costumes. I actually didn't really like the costume they had in this show. I thought that the Ben Affleck costume was better, and I liked the fact that he was just in black the entire time for almost the entire series.
Well, I thought I was going to have a problem with that, but after about maybe 2 episodes, I didn't care. You know,
Yeah.
I was like, he can keep this on for the next 3 seasons, and I'm not going to care.
Yeah,
You know, the show's cool without the costume. You know, and
Man,
I
it just-
never
it
thought I
gra-
would say that. You know.
Yeah, it just brings the realism a little bit more. Like, he doesn't have to have a costume to be who he is. That's not at all. He's not that. I guess he does become that icon because he's the devil of Hell's Kitchen, so he's got to look the part. But I don't know. He was just fine with the black. Maybe there's too much Batman there, though.
Well, I think that they gave him a purpose for having the costume. He needed the body armor. He, you know, he can take a punch, you know, and everything, but
not from Kingpin.
Yeah, you can't continue to take the kind of beatings that he was taking and knifings and things like that he was getting, and not eventually have permanent repercussions from that. You know.
Yep. Mike says that. Sorry, just quickly here. Mike Cohen says that his favorite costume is the one from the series, but he would have made the buckles on the belt into the DD, the classic DD.
I understood why they didn't have that on the suit, because at the time he wasn't called Daredevil.
True. Yeah.
And so because he wasn't called Daredevil, I think that it made sense for him not to have any kind of symbolism or anything on the suit other than just the horns. And I think that now, because he was named Daredevil in that last episode, that when he comes back for season 2, he'll probably already have the DD somewhere on the suit when you first see him in that first episode. That's my prediction anyway.
Yep, that could be. I'm fine if they leave it off as well. It doesn't make a break to me.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be there, but it's nice to see the homage paid to the comics, I guess, in that way.
Right.
And it doesn't have to necessarily be on the chest or whatever. It can be like he was talking about with the buckles or whatever. But you know, because they did something similar to that with the really old school Punisher movie that they did, where he didn't have the skull anywhere on his suit, but he had the skull on all of his little knives and everything that he used.
Is that the Dolph Lundgren Punisher?
Yes. And that I think that movie gets a lot more flack than it deserves. I don't think it pays true homage necessarily to the comics per se, but I think that for what it is, it's not a bad movie, especially for the time it was made in. I'll put it that way. It's got some hokey stuff in it because of the time period that it was made and stuff, you know. But back then, a lot of movies had that stuff. So,
yep, it was the 80s.
My personal favorite costume for Daredevil is the charcoal and red. where he has the charcoal and red.
Is that the one where he had kind of like shoulder blades on the armor? Like, was that
I think so.
was that from the
I like
late
the
90s?
I like the color. I like the color from that suit. I'm not necessarily saying that I like all the armoring and stuff that they had, but I like the colorization of that. And
Yeah.
that was something that I felt like kind of was paid homage to a little bit in the suit from the show, because it was mostly red, but it had the black underneath.
Right.
And so you kind of had that black and red contrast, which reminded me a lot of that charcoal or black and red suit that he had back in the 90s.
Yeah, I didn't care for that one all that much, but I wasn't reading Daredevil at the time, and I just thought it was
well, I just like the color. I like the color of the suit.
Yeah.
I think that it has a nice contrast and everything, and it has like the charcoal gray mask with like the red eyes in it, and I think the horns were just slightly bigger on that one, and it's just stylized differently.
Yeah. Do you think that Fox is kicking themselves for letting go of Daredevil?
At this point, yeah.
Yeah. Do you also think that the success that Daredevil has, it'll either push Fox further away and say, heck no, we're not letting any more of our characters go, or maybe they'll enter into an agreement like Sony's doing with Spider-Man?
Well, I think that this is what I have heard. Of course, not through necessarily any official channels or whatever, just through rumor mills and stuff. I've heard murmurings of the fact that the reason why you don't see any of the X-Men or Fantastic Four characters on a lot of the Marvel merchandise is because
totally.
because they don't, because there is this animosity, I guess you would say, between Disney or Marvel and Fox, because Disney and Marvel wants their stuff back and Fox doesn't want to give it up, and because Fox is blocking them and being able to get their properties back, they're saying, okay, if that's the way you feel about it, we're not going to promote anything that has those characters on it. And the only thing that you're seeing with those characters in it is actual comic books. You're not seeing them in advertisements or anything like that.
But you're not even seeing them there. I mean, Fantastic Four, they gave them all white costumes and then they turned red, and now they've just ended that book. They canceled Fantastic Four. They've killed off Wolverine in the comics, and all of the X-Men, like there's 5 or 6 X-Men titles, and none of them look like any of the movie characters. Like Cyclops is there, but he's not in the movies. But he looks completely different. Magneto's all in white. He's a good guy, and like Storm has her mohawk look. They're doing all that they can to distance themselves from whatever Fox is doing.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did they not also take the X books and disperse all of those characters out into other teams so that those characters are no longer actually part of the X-Men anymore?
Which like the main characters? Because there still are a few. I mean, I don't know.
I know there's still an X-Men book, but a lot of the titles, I think didn't they move some of
the core X-Men book? Oh, I think we lost Paul again. But I think that, people can correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't keep up with X-Men, and they change so frequently that I have no idea what's going on. But the core X-Men team is like Uncanny X-Men. It focuses on Cyclops, Magneto, Magic, Lady Mastermind. Like, this is it's a bizarre X-Men, and it's not at all the characters that you're used to. They're not. Fox is doing what Marvel's doing what they can to really downplay all of the properties that Fox has a hold of. Except Daredevil. I mean, Deadpool. Deadpool seems to be getting a lot of attention still. But Paul, we lost Paul again. His PC decided to reboot. I don't know what that means. So I could use a couple more questions to talk about. Joe Parr says, Ben Ulrich played a pretty good-sized part on the side of Civil War in the comics. Did it surprise you guys too when he was killed? Now, it surprised me that he was killed, sort of, but I didn't think at all of Civil War. I did read that, but I honestly don't remember a whole lot of that, except that Speedball was the catalyst. So I'm really hoping that Speedball is going to be in Civil War, because I really like Speedball. Unfortunately, Ben Ulrich is the type of character in Civil War that is just kind of interchangeable. He's not specific enough that he has to be in Civil War. They could stick in anybody, any reporter in there. And they probably, out of the existing people that are already in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm not sure who would play that role, but I'm not sure. Let's see, what else is... Joe also said, I thought he was being set up to have some part in either the movie or through one of the Netflix series while it was going on. Yeah, I kind of did too. I was hoping that he'd show up in the Jessica Jones series, but I don't know, unless they find a way to bring him back, because that happens in superhero movies. They don't have a Lazarus pit, so that's not going to happen. Maybe someone could go back in time, but that just doesn't seem like something that would happen in Daredevil. Boy, sorry about the technical difficulties. Paul is restarting his computer, and he'll be back to join us in a little bit. Let's see. I'm hoping that in Jessica Jones, in the Jessica Jones series, I'm really hoping that they'll stick a lot to the that Bendis run in the Alias series, where she and Luke Cage. I don't know if Luke Cage is supposed to be one of the main characters, but I'd love to see him in that show as well, because they had such a good relationship, a lot of dynamics there that would be great to have explored. And then, you know, their paths cross. She's investigating a story that leads to Matt Murdock. That would be kind of neat to see them tie in Foggy and Nelson, or Foggy, Nelson and Murdock, to tie in Nelson and Murdock there. Are you back, Paul? Are you with us again? I can see your face, but I can't tell if you're with us again. Oh, Joe Parr says Tahiti version 2. Yep, that's not a bad idea, except seems a little science fiction for the world that they're creating for Daredevil. But yeah, it's totally possible. Are you there, Paul? Can you see me? I can see you, but you can't see me? Oh, no. I don't know. I guess I'll just keep on talking here for a little while. Yeah, speaking of...
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me at all? But I am here, and I can hear you. Well, we'll let Paul figure that out, and I'll keep on talking a little bit. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and how that is connecting a little bit to the overall story.
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I can see you, but I can't hear you.
Well, I don't know what to say then. I'm going to try rebooting your computer again. That's my message to you, Paul. Take a look over there. Take a look at what I wrote over there. Oh, he's gone. He's going to try that again. Anyway, so I was talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the whole story that they're doing with the Inhumans and building up the Inhuman Kree storyline. I'd love to see the effects of that trickle down to what's happening in these Netflix series as well. I don't know how likely we're going to see people with powers in the Netflix show. One, because it's just a smaller budget, and they two, it seems like they've picked people who are specifically their powers are hidden, or their powers are very kind of behind the scenes, with the exception of Iron Fist, who gets glowing hands. But you know, Luke Cage is just kind of strong. Jessica Jones has powers, but she doesn't use them. She tries not to. And Daredevil is all kind of internal from what you see. So, but I'd love to see some Inhumans come down, because there's definitely some stories to be told there with Agent Coulson, kind of connecting with the lower level heroes, just getting down on the street there. Are you there, Paul?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
you hear me this time?
Yes.
Yay! Good to have you back.
I don't know what's going on with this thing.
That's
I gotta get my other computer fixed. It's a lot better than this one.
Well, the important part is that you're back with us now, and we can continue our conversation. I was just saying that I'd love to see the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. storylines kind of trickle down into the Netflix series, but they're in such different worlds that it might not be possible. But I'd love to see some.
I think there could be a little bit of crossover because they have brought in a lot darker aspects into that show, especially in this last part of this last season. I mean, dude, they turned some people into ash, you know.
True.
So,
well, and I'd love to see. I bet Garrett, who kind of exploded at the end of season 1, if they could find a way for him to come back, I'd love to see that, because he's got such a great story with Elektra in that Elektra Assassin graphic novel. It's fantastic, and that's he plays the same kind of character, of course, in the show, but I'd really love to see him show up in Daredevil sometime as well. And that would be a way to cross the shows over. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Do you think that this is just speculation on my part? Do you think that we will see Daredevil have anything to do with Civil War?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. It would just be a cameo, but that movie is already so incredibly packed with like, their cast is so dense that they don't need him. Yeah, I don't know. I would hope that he would not be in it, actually. What I'd love to see is the Defenders just show up at the end of one of the Infinity movies to lend a helping hand there.
Well, I know that, if I'm not mistaken, that's supposed to be the largest group of heroes in the cinematic universe is when they get to Infinity Gauntlet. So I think that they'll probably have everybody from every branch probably come into that at some point.
Yeah, and then I'd like Marvel to stop making movies, because that would be perfect, right? Because they've done the biggest thing that they could possibly do, and where are they going to go from there? But there's not a chance that's going to happen.
I'll be honest with you. I almost see them doing something along the lines of what Fox did with X-Men and Days of Future Past, where they almost used that as a way to reboot the Marvel Cinematic Universe and start a whole nother storyline with different actors and everything.
Yeah, and that would be a smart role, except that the Marvel Cinematic Universe starts at the beginning. X-Men started once the school was already formed, so they had those backstories to tell. But we meet all the characters as they get their powers or as their stories are told. So there's not really a back to go to.
The only reason I say that is because of the reboot that Marvel's doing right now in the comics.
Right.
You know,
and I'm still convinced that reboot, a lot of that has to be not only to get Miles Morales into the regular continuity, but to distance themselves from the X-Men and Fantastic Four franchises as much as they can as well.
Probably.
They're going to change some things up so that X-Men is going to be even more unrecognizable. And then Fantastic Four's still gone. So.
Yeah, that's wow. I would never thought that Marvel would ever have wanted to do away with those kind of flagship characters.
But it's just a temporary thing to them. They're putting the pressure on Fox, and I'm sure they'll bring it back.
So. Yeah, I think so. I mean, but dude, to have the guts to kill off Wolverine.
Yeah, especially since I mean, they stick him in every book so that he will increase their numbers, and then they take him away. It's a gutsy move, and I think that it's good for for them to do it if they want to get their characters back.
Yeah. Well, it almost feels like to Marvel, I think that they're doing free advertising for Fox when they put out books with those characters in them. You
Yep.
know.
Yep, which is why Cyclops is heading a team with Magic and Lady Mastermind and Magneto.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not advertising for their movies at all.
No. And you know, the fact that Marvel is doing so much now with Inhumans versus mutants in their stories and stuff, it just tells me that they know that they have other options and they don't have to put all their eggs in one basket.
They even just recently retconned Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch's origin.
I heard that.
Magneto's not their dad anymore, so they don't even have to. Like that's even more distancing them from the movies.
Which almost makes you feel like that they did that so that they would not be able to use them in the X-Men movies anymore. You know.
Yeah, I don't know where I don't think that's going to happen because they, like in Avengers, they weren't called Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. They never referred to them by that name. So there's still
it was Wanda and
Pietro.
Yeah, Pietro.
There are still some legal issues there that I'm sure they have to work out. But yep, they're just fiddling with their universe so that I wonder what they're going to do with Daredevil because that Daredevil movie is looking like it's going to be a big hit for Fox. Which means that either Marvel's going to have to kill off Daredevil, or accept that Fox can make those more of those movies.
Fox is making a Daredevil movie again.
I'm sorry. I meant Deadpool. I keep saying Daredevil, but I mean Deadpool. Deadpool is looking like it's going to be a big one.
Well, they messed him up the first time, so you know.
Yeah, there's anything better than what they did last night for sure.
Well, I mean, they had the potential to do a lot with the character the first time around, and I think they didn't get the right people involved. I think to make the decisions on that, you know, because I mean, he wasn't at all what Deadpool is in the comics, you know.
Yeah, not even close. Like if
completely unrecognizable.
They had they made him not talk. Like that's how is that going to be a Deadpool character?
Yeah, I was telling somebody, they were like, well, I think they could still use him, you know, because he opened his eyes after they cut his head off, and I was thinking, well, you know, if they're going to use him in that incarnation, they're going to have to do something to retcon that character to make him more like the character from the comics. You know, he's going to have to cut his mouth back open or something. Yep. You know, it's just, you know, and I'm not saying that they couldn't possibly have done that, but I don't think it would have been, you know, what people necessarily wanted from the character. You know?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a straight reboot. Forget what happened in the past, except for the fact that they have Ryan Reynolds there again, which is odd. But
right.
If they forget everything that happened and just start clean, then no problem.
And I know some people are like, well, I don't think Ryan Reynolds should do it because, you know, of Green Lantern or whatever. I don't think Ryan Reynolds was the problem with Green Lantern.
Definitely not. Yeah. Yep, there were some probably upper level executive decisions there and writing compromises that.
And I'm probably in the minority, but I think that, in my personal opinion, I think that the majority of that movie was well done. I think that there were some key things that they could have changed that would have made it a whole lot better.
Have you been watching Gotham at all?
Oh, dude. Yes, I've seen every episode.
Okay, I've only seen the first episode, and I haven't. Now that it's the off season, I might try to catch up, but I haven't been watching it. But how does the world of Gotham in that TV show compare to the world of Daredevil from the series?
Tonally, it's different because tonally it is more of a procedural type show. It does have some similarities in the darkness and things of the show, but it has a especially with the Rogues Gallery stuff, it has a little bit more of a fancifulness to it. Not in a hokey way, but just in a I'm going to take you just far enough out of the normal level of reality to make this interesting, but not take you so far out of it that it takes you out of the story, kind of thing. Because especially in Batman, I think that a lot of the rogues in the Rogues Gallery for Batman are a little bit more heightened to begin with,
Right.
And I think that they're walking that line for those characters of keeping it as much grounded in reality as they can, but still giving people enough of that elevated level for those characters to make them recognizable and make them just enough off balance that people still relate to those characters the way they would in the books.
Yeah, and Daredevil doesn't have that Rogues Gallery.
No.
He's got a few guys, but it's too bad they killed off the Owl. I would have liked to have him come up a little bit, but he's probably mostly dead. There's a big pool of blood under his head at the end of that altercation.
Yeah.
So, but he plays a pretty big role in the comics. He gets to be kind of Kingpin status at one point, I think, and it would have been nice to see him played out as well. But I guess if you have limited time, they're going to focus more on Kingpin than.
Do you remember a character, probably back in the 80s now, called the Rose?
Yeah, well, that's Kingpin's son, right?
I can't remember.
Yeah, that is the son of Kingpin and Vanessa.
Okay.
But he'd be good if they brought him in. But I mean, they'd have to jump ahead in time in order to.
Either that, or they'd have to retcon the character in some way to bring him in to say he's from a different wife or something.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, they could do that.
But I remember that character because of the fact that he kept his face covered and stuff. At least back in the 80s. And I thought that character was kind of an interesting character. He almost seemed similar to I just went blank on his name, Wesley in the TV show.
Oh yeah,
at least to me in the comics, that's kind of the vibe that I got off him. Is he was kind of that same type of character that Wesley was in the TV show.
I really liked Wesley. I thought he was such a good character, and it really showed the human side to Fisk as well. Especially there's one scene where I can't remember, the Chinese woman finds out where Fisk lives and says she's coming over, and then he calls up Wesley and says, "Can you
meet me there?"
How
fast can you get here?
No. What is he says? Can you be here before she is?
Yes.
And then he says, "I'm already on my way," and he says, "Thank you," with so much sincerity in his voice. Like, these guys are definitely friends. I liked that scene a lot, even though it was just kind of a throwaway conversation.
Well,
it was.
I have mixed emotions over the whole Wesley thing, because I like the fact that they were gutsy enough to do what they did in the story with that character, but at the same time, I kind of wish that character could carry over into season 2.
Yeah,
because he is a interesting character. I think he's not the quote unquote monster that Wilson is, but he's creepy in his own right because of the coldness that he exudes when he's trying to intimidate these people, talking about his employer and things,
Yeah.
And he doesn't do it in a way that is over the top. He's actually more of the tone of Hannibal Lecter, almost, in the way that he talks to these people. It almost makes your skin crawl without actually him trying to be creepy, if that makes sense.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, it's disarming.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Where should we go with our conversation? We could,
What did you think about Vanessa's character?
um, you know, there were times when I was like, she's just a plot device.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's other times where it's like I really liked the way that she connected and related with Wilson. Ultimately, I didn't really care about her at all, and when she was poisoned, it didn't. I was like, I hope that I actually hope she goes so that Wilson turns more to what I'm used to or whatever, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So she was kind of she's kind of a non-character, I thought. What did you think?
Well, I liked the interactions that she had with Fisk. I thought that they were natural. I thought that it felt like it didn't it started out, I think, almost feeling like a little bit of a stretch that these two people would have bonded the way that they did, but after an episode or two of seeing them together, it felt like that it was something that could really happen, because they were connecting on more than just the surface level.
Yeah.
She was actually seeing him for the person he was on the inside, and she saw his um, uh, uncertainty, and she saw his weaknesses that nobody else saw, except for maybe Wesley. Wesley, I think, saw some of that because I don't know if you remember when Vanessa was in the hospital, and he said, um, I think she was still in the hospital when this happened. It was after he blew up, after talking with I can't remember her name, the Chinese lady.
Yeah, I can't remember her. I gotta look that up.
Yeah. It was after that when he told Wesley, he said, if I needed you, I would call you. And Wesley said, I'm not so sure about that, because Wesley knows him better than anybody except for maybe Vanessa at this point.
Right.
Um, and I think in a way they sort of used her a little bit as a plot device, but at the same time, I thought, but because of the caliber of actress that they got to play her and whatnot, I felt like that uh, she's still got something to offer to the show. I think they can do a lot more with her in season 2. But
Yeah. So the thing that I really liked about her was her moment came at the very, very end of the
Mhm,
series, where I assumed for the whole thing that she was genuinely a good person,
mhm,
and then everything starts happening to Fisk, and his whole world starts crumbling, and he gets down to the point of like, what am I going to do now? The police are beating down my door, and Vanessa's the one that says, "Don't turn yourself and get out of here," or whatever, something like that. Like
right.
and that tells me that she's thinking along the same lines as Wilson, and now he has that support or whatever that's going to keep him going in jail.
I almost, because of the way that they ended that scene with her and him when he got arrested, uh, I almost wonder if they could possibly use her as his stand-in in season 2, as her, letting her be kind of his hands, so to speak, while he is in prison to carry out the things that he wants done. Um,
Right.
if they did that, they could really expound on that character a lot, and really show some depth at that point in season 2.
Well, I think that I think she does take over in the comics. She does take over for Fisk at one point. I think because Fisk disappears all the time. Like he goes
Mm-hmm.
away and then comes back and stuff. And I think that one time she takes over, but I think she's also dead in the comics, and that really set him off at one point as well. Might have been Daredevil's fault. Probably was.
Well, he's going to blame it on him anyway, even if it's not, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So in the next season, I would like to see more of their lawyer work, because I thought it was great that in the end they actually took him down, not by brute force, but because they used the law, which gave a purpose to them being lawyers. It was a really good way to do that, rather than just beating the villain into the ground. Which, I mean, that had to happen too, because it's a superhero thing. But that wasn't the main reason.
And let's be honest, everybody wants to see Daredevil and Fisk go at it.
Yep, and that was a good fight too. You know what's interesting? I just was thinking about it is we were talking a little bit about Fisk's origin story and how he's as a kid he was kind of the sensitive guy. He's looking up to his dad, except for when his dad was touching his mom, and then he went ballistic. Right? On the flip side, Daredevil's dad comes from a history of fighting. Like, that's all he did for a living, for a career, was knocking people out, beating people up. But Daredevil, or Matt, came out of that so completely different because of the way his dad spoke about what he did. And even though like he died because he didn't fight, yeah, it's just an interesting connection between the two main characters there, the bad guy and good guy, kind of a reversal story.
Yeah, and I like the way that Matt is portrayed in this show, because they bring the Catholicism in and make that kind of a real thing, as opposed to just making it some type of surface thing. Say, well, he's a Catholic, and we're going to just make some shots with him like in the church just so that we can show he's a Catholic or whatever. You actually get to see him sit down and have conversations about how this is affecting him in his heart and in his soul, how he feels like that he is walking a tightrope, where he feels like that he could go at any moment and become what Fisk is, and the fact that he's so worried about his the damnation of his soul, because it goes against his religious beliefs. What he's actually doing goes against his religious beliefs, and I think that adds another whole layer to that character as well.
Yeah, and I liked the portrayal of the priest that they were using as well. It was like like by the end of it, he pretty much knew that Matt's Daredevil. Right. Like that's but he's not condemning his actions. Instead, he's trying to be a friend to him and trying to support him.
Right. He's not overly pious or whatever. He's a real guy that just happens to be a priest. Yep,
and I think you don't get a whole lot of those kind of, like they usually TV shows will play with the priest stereotypes, and I think they broke away from that a little bit here in this one, which is nice to see.
And I think that he and Foggy together, more so than anybody else in the show, kind of, I don't want to sound flippant when I say this, they almost come off like the Jiminy Cricket type of, they are sort of the
little shoulder angels or something.
They're sort of the conscious, or the physical manifestation of his conscious.
Yeah.
I think that helps the show.
Well,
more,
and
more than it could ever hurt it.
Yeah, Night Nurse did that as well.
Yeah. But I think that one of the reasons why I relate to Foggy being that so much is because you actually feel the connection between those two characters. You actually feel the brotherhood, the brotherly love between those two characters, and you feel how much it tears Matt up inside to know that Foggy might be disappointed in him.
Right.
More so than he would be worried about it with anybody else.
Did you catch the Stan Lee cameo in the series?
I did, but I can't remember where it is.
I didn't catch it. I had to look it up because I was like, he's got to be in here somewhere. So I looked it up, and he wasn't actually physically there. There was a picture of him in the police station when the corrupt police officer turns himself in, all covered in blood, in that scene. As he's walking up to the counter, the one good cop, I can't remember his name, is receiving him, and in the background, right behind him, is the picture of Stan the Man, right back there.
I remembered seeing him in it, but I could not remember what part of it I saw him in.
Yeah,
you know?
It was too bad. I liked Stan's cameo in the Daredevil movie, where the young Matt's trying to help him cross the street. I think that's the one. Yeah.
No, where he keeps him from walking out into traffic, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He prevents him from walking out in front of a car.
That's right. Yep. Uh-oh. I think we lost Paul again. That poor guy. He needs to get a new computer. Well, we've been going for an hour and 45 minutes, so maybe this is actually a good time to wrap up. So I'm going to just quickly say to Paul, I'm going to say I'm wrapping up. Hit back on to say goodbye. Okay, well, I will do a few shout outs here. First of all, we want to thank all of our Patreon listeners or Patreon supporters for supporting us with our various podcasts here. We thank you very much for being a part of that. Also, if you want to spread the word and keep on telling other people about ThunderQuack Podcast Network and all of the various podcasts we're part of, we would love that. We'd be very appreciative, because that's word of mouth is always kind of the best way to get people on board, because people will come. Your recommendation holds a lot of weight with your friends. So tell them about us. And I'll say again, I'm part of Pullbox Podcast, and Mike and I are recording an episode tomorrow morning. We are going to be talking about the great Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale book, Superman for All Seasons. We'll also be talking about Tell Us by Todd DeZago and Mike Ringo, and the fairly new book called The Wrenchies by Farrell Dalrymple. So you can go to pullboxpodcast.com and have a listen to that. Once we post it, which will probably be on, I think, maybe Monday? I can't remember. The first of the month, whatever that is. And then let us know what you want us to read as well, and we'll read it, and we'll talk about it. And I'm sure if Paul were here, he'd be talking about Doctor Who and telling you to listen to his new podcast, Talking Time Lords. There are also a lot of Star Wars podcasts, and I probably don't need to advertise to you guys, because you are the guys who know all about what we're doing here. So, but we want you to be involved. Keep sending those emails. Keep talking to us. Keep tweeting and Facebooking and all of that fun stuff. Anyway, I don't know if Paul's going to come back on here. So just before we go, does anyone have any last thoughts? Joe Parr says, "Great job. Good to hear your insights," and I thank you very much for that. Paul, are you here? Can you hear me? Good. I've wrapped us up. I just need you to say goodbye to all of our friends. Are you there? No, he's gone again. Well, okay. I guess we're going to have to... I'll say goodbye on behalf of Paul. He wishes he could be here to say goodbye in person, but his computer's acting up, so I'm just going to say goodbye to him. Have a great night. We'll see you next month. I don't know what the topic is, but we'll talk about that in our next... on the ThunderQuack Facebook page. So have a good night.